for her to raise her head to make sure she's ready. Welcome. I'd like to welcome everybody here to the Engineering, Technology, and Innovation Center on the campus of Elkhart High School and the Elkhart Area Career Center. My name is Brandon Akins. I'm the director of the Elkhart Area Career Center. On behalf of Elkhart Community Schools and the Career Center, we welcome everybody today. Would like to welcome our keynote speaker, Jason Lippert. Very happy to have Jason in our space here, talking about advanced manufacturing and what it means to our community. I would also like to welcome our co-partners in this event, Ivy Tech Community College. Ivy Tech has been a huge partner of the Elkhart Area Career Center for a number of years, and we get excited each and every year to see how that partnership continues to grow and develop. With us today, we have students from our automation and robotics, mechatronics, precision machining, and welding programs that have joined us. And we are coming from the Community Presentation Center here at the ETI building. This ETI building is a new facility that opened in August of this year as one of the hubs of the Elkhart High School model, the Pathway School model, and focuses on careers in engineering, technology, and innovation. And more specifically for the Elkhart Area Career Center, focuses on careers in advanced manufacturing. So without further ado, I'm going to turn this over to Chancellor Dr. Dave Balkin.
Thank you, Brandon. I want to thank Brandon and the Elkhart Area Career Center team for all the work they've done to make today's event possible. For those of you who are here, you got the blessing of being able to experience it firsthand, but this is an amazing facility, and I really want to encourage all of you to swing by and check it out. I also want to thank, obviously, the hundreds of people who are joining us virtually on our live stream. Due to safety guidelines, due to the COVID situation, we have a limited number of people attending in person. But this event is actually the culmination of the National Career Development Week. And Ivy Tech South Bend Elkhart Career Coaching and Employer Connections Department has held numerous events this week for students to learn more about careers and skills needed to be successful in our local workforce. We're really excited to make history today by launching the very first PRIME series. PRIME stands for Partnership for Regional Innovation, Manufacturing, and Entrepreneurship. And PRIME is another way Ivy Tech is partnering with local leaders to educate the current and future workforce about the state of specific industries, career opportunities, and best practices. We're incredibly honored to have Jason Lippert, President and CEO of Lippert Components, as our keynote speaker today. As you probably all know, Lippert continues to be one of Ivy Tech South Bend Elkhart's strongest partners, and we work together to increase work-based learning opportunities such as apprenticeships for their team members. Jason leads more than 12,000 team members across the world at Lippert Components, and they're a leading supplier to the RV industry. He successfully built upon the strong foundation laid by his father and grandfather, transforming a steel roofing business into a thriving international supplier with annual revenues of over $2.5 billion. Jason is laser focused on building strong teams through leadership development and a positive culture, bettering our communities, and growing the company significantly with new product innovations. Also, if you follow Jason on LinkedIn, you know he took his family on a 2-week RV adventure across the country this past summer, showing people just how fun and safe RVing truly is, especially in today's environment. With that, please join me in welcoming Jason Lippert. Thank you.
Welcome, everybody. Thanks for attending today. About the RV trip, I'd recommend before you take 4 kids under the age of 16 across the country that you think about it first. It was 5,400 miles it was an adventure, but it was a lot of challenges along the way. You did a great job introducing the company, so I left you guys all a packet. Tells you a little bit about LCI and what we do. As David said, we're about a $3 billion organization in manufacturing. We've got about 90 divisions around the world, most of them here in this region. And we've got about 12,000 team members today and growing. We've done another interesting fact is we've done about 65 acquisitions in the last 20 years. So we acquire a lot of companies and businesses and integrate. Again, all manufacturing. So that's enough about LCI. I'm hoping to teach you guys something about culture and leadership during the talk today, and then toward the end we'll hit questions in the panel around advanced manufacturing and the workforce and some of the things going on there. But I wanted my 20 minutes or so of speaking to be around culture and leadership, and specifically around LCI's journey in those two areas over the last decade. So that said, I want you to take a few things away. First, culture is an innovative process. God wired us to be creative and innovative, so it ought to appeal to everybody that's involved with a business, is getting involved with culture and leadership. The culture is a journey, and that long after you get done working for whoever it is that you decide to work for over your 30 or 40 or 50 years, the culture will continue to evolve and change, either for the better or for worse. Culture and leadership and values are completely intertwined. You cannot have one without the other. And lastly, culture, if done well, can be a force for good in this world because of leadership models and values that are alive and well in a good culture. And we've got a lot of good examples of that in our business because we measure culture. A lot of companies measure the financials, they measure the top line and the bottom line, and those are kind of king to most companies, but we measure culture in our company. We measure life changes, we measure positive impact, we measure things like family improvements, we measure things like marriage improvements, we measure things like smoking cessations, weight loss, financial improvement, leadership growth. So we have metrics to a lot of these things that are human and personal. So it's a truly human leadership type model that we've got around our culture that I feel is missing in this world. We know is missing in this world because we work around a lot of companies that don't value, appreciate, and respect the human beings working in the organization. It's all top and bottom line. So I want to take you along our journey a little bit to hope give you some clarity as to how we went from how most companies are to how we are today and how important it is. So it is a message of hope. And the statistic I want to start out with today is that 88% of people in this country in the workforce feel like they work for a company that doesn't care for them. So let that sink in for a second. That means 12% of the people in this country that are working today feel like they work for a company that empowers them, that they make them feel valued, they make them feel respected, they reward them for the great things that they do and appreciate them. That's 12% of the people. If you want to take a guess as to why our world's in such a tough place today, this might be one of the problems, and we feel it is, and that's why we say, culture can be, and business culture can be, a force for good in this world if we all focus on it and get really intentional. So, about our journey, when I came to the business in 1994, I went into welding. You guys here, right, this side of the room? That's where I started for about 12 months, and it was a nasty place. It was a place where people didn't get their way, whether they were leaders or team members on the front lines of the business. It was screaming and yelling and arguing. And I've been in many manufacturing facilities all over the country over the last couple decades, my 26 years here with the business. And it's not too much different today than it was when I first started. And a lot of that's because culture is not intentional. You fast forward from 94, we operated like that. I learned that way. I was, 22 years old? Nobody told me that I would have the voice to be able to change it to a different way. I just thought that's the way business was, and that's how most people come into the workforce. They learn the culture that they're in, and most of them are bad. And then when you become a leader, that's how you act. That's just the way it works. So you fast forward to 2012, our turnover is 130%. Our turnover was 130%, so that's the equivalent of us turning over 13,000 team members today. So you put your head around that, try to think about training, hiring 13,000 people a year, only at the end of the year to lose them all and then to have to do it all over again. So the whole mission around culture started with turnover and realizing that turning people over is painful. It's hard. It's a lot of work, and you're always doing it. So we started with how do we get people to want to be at our place for the long haul? How do we get people to say, I want to retire at LCI. I want to stay here forever. This is where I want to work. I love my family here. And we started by listening. We just started listening to our team members. They told us a lot of things. They told us break rooms were too small. We had grown over the years, and the break rooms were too small. They didn't offer enough options. They were dirty. Bathrooms weren't big enough. Plants weren't organized. Leaders were not where they needed to be and doing some terrible things out in the facility. So after listening to our team members, we started making changes. And once we started making changes, we said, hey, we probably ought to have values. And that's really where our culture really turned in a good way, is we sat down as a group and decided that we're going to put values to the organization, make that kind of the lifeblood and heartbeat of our company. And once we did that, the most important thing we did was align people to the values. We made sure people were aligned, and if they couldn't get aligned, we moved them respectfully out of the organization. So alignment of values was pivotal and key in that whole process. After we developed values and started aligning people to our values, we hired a leadership coach. We realized really fast in this whole leadership and culture journey that general managers, plant managers, our frontline leaders all over the company, and we've got, I think, 900 people in our company with leadership positions. They can't do their jobs of running the business and running their areas and teach and coach people how to be better leaders every day. You can do a little bit of that, but if you've got a plant with 900 people, how are you going to teach leadership and train people up in leadership? Nobody taught me leadership when I came into the business world, so we felt that we'd hire a leadership coach. So we hired a leadership coach. We eventually hired 10 more. So as a result, we were able to, on the side, teach people individually, one-on-one and in small groups, what it means to be a leader at LCI. We came up with our own leadership values. So you had core values for any team member that comes to the company, and we help people align to the core values. And the second thing we did was develop leadership values. So anybody decided to be a leader had to have, a set of 5 additional values that were really important to leading people. And then we held people accountable and aligned people to leadership values. We coined our culture after a few years, everyone matters. And after we hired leadership coaches, we hired personal development coaches. We realized really fast, as we were trying to help and coach people up in leadership, how to become better leaders and treat and respect their teams better than maybe what they were taught in their previous jobs. It became apparent that a lot of the issues that people were having in getting the job done were personal crises. They were personal opportunities and problems that they were going through. So our personal development coaches really helped to create personal growth paths and goals and set goals and help people dream a little bit and get past some of their obstacles and stumbling blocks they had in their own lives. Because if you think about it, most companies tell you to check your personal baggage at the door, get to work, and get home. That's just kind of the age-old adage. But it's really, if you think about it, it's really hard to separate from your personal life if you got something really serious going on. So our personal development coaches work with our team members that are struggling, and we started a Dream Achiever program where we started sitting down with our team members and talked about, hey, what are your dreams and goals in life? And people that were 40, 50, 60 years old, had a common response of, nobody's asked me that question. I haven't asked myself that question in decades. And it's sad that we've gotten to a point where people stop dreaming and have goals in their life, but through business and through some of these additional resources we've added, we can do that. And that's, we've helped people accomplish a lot of dreams in their lives because we sit down and say, hey, what are they? Let's write them down. Let's write down the action plan you're going to have to be able to accomplish those goals. And then we held them accountable so that we make sure that they're taking steps and not just forgetting about it. But those kinds of things have empowered our people so greatly that they get up in the morning with their hearts on fire and say, I'm coming to LCI. This is my place where I'm going to work. This is the place where I'm going to retire. The people around here care about me like family. I've never had a company that's helped me in my personal growth. I've never had a company that's helped me in my leadership growth, and they stick around. So the great thing about culture, to come full circle, is that when you pour into your people and you reward them and appreciate them and build them up and help them grow as human beings, they tend to want to stay with the company longer. And when they stay with the company longer, 6 things happen. Your efficiency gets better, your quality gets better, your safety gets better, and your innovation gets better. Those 4 business things are all great things for your top and bottom line. So if you think about it, if you've got, let's say you've got a work cell or a work area, a welding area, where you've got 10 people there, if you have people coming in and out of that work cell every week because you're turning people over and not leading well, what do you think happens? Probably not that efficient. Your quality could probably get better. You probably have safety incidents because new people coming to the job are not going to know the safety hazards. But if you get a team of people that's fired up and their heart's on fire to come to work for you every day because you're leading well, you're likely going to have that team engaged for a long period of time. And if you do, quality, safety, efficiency, and innovation all get better. The other 2 things that happen when you lead well and you have a good culture, you treat people well and appreciate them and respect them and reward them for the good things that they do, they tend to go home with a positive attitude, right? Makes sense? They go home with a positive attitude. They probably treat their families and the people outside the workplace a little bit better. And that can only ripple to positive things. Kids probably grow up in a better light. Too many people are going home frustrated and ticked off and angry because of the way they're treated at work every day by their leader or their boss. And that spills out outside the workplace. It spills out at home, spills out with the kids. You can't bottle that anger and frustration and things that happen at work up. You can't do it. It's not humanly possible. Eventually it's going to come out. Some people it comes out quick and some people it takes a while. So again, one of the things that happens when you lead well at work and you've got a good work culture is that you send people home in a positive light. They're going to treat their families and people in the community better, which makes our communities and ultimately the world a better place. Think about if all the companies across this country were to have great cultures and send their people home like that, you can only imagine that the world would probably be a better place. The other thing that happens when we do culture and leadership well at work is we send people home healthier. 75% of the illnesses in this country are chronic. And chronic illnesses are largely caused by stress and anxiety. And where do you think stress and anxiety comes from these days? The workplace. That's where you spend 40 or 50 hours a week. So when you spend your 40 or 50 hours a week under a bad boss or a bad culture or a bad leader, you're likely going to have more stress and anxiety in your life. You have more stress and anxiety in your life, you're likely to be a little bit more unhealthy than you could or should be. So we say 6 things happen when culture and leadership models work well. Safety, quality, innovation, efficiency get better. We send people home happier and in a more positive attitude, and we send them home healthier. So those are the reasons why we should do culture the right way and why we should work on leadership at work, because when we do, we're ultimately creating a better world. And if you haven't noticed, like I said, the world's not in the greatest of spots right now. Values are at an all-time low, and values are what we can start teaching and preaching at work. If we're intentional about it, if we've got intentional-minded leaders that are focused on culture and developing leaders and not just top-line sales and the bottom line and whatever it is they got to report to their investors or board or whoever the stakeholders are in the business. So with that, those are some of my prepared remarks. We talked about the future of work in Elkhart County, St. Joe County, the region here. Right now, LCI has about 700 open positions. So there is not a shortage of work opportunities in this county for skilled labor. And again, a lot of companies out there will take whoever we can as long as they're willing to jump in and participate and contribute. We're 700 open positions. There's 1,000 other companies in this county that have open positions as well. So if you're curious about work, I wouldn't worry about it right now because there's a lot of opportunities. And there's companies with highly automated manufacturing operations. There's companies that just are job shops that have opportunities with low skill level, but likely those companies are all going to gravitate toward spending money and capital toward building their manufacturing technologies up, and I know we'll talk about that in a little bit. So that said, I mean the work opportunities in this county are tremendous, And, there's the companies, I think from a culture standpoint, they'll all come along. Brandon and I and David were talking just before, and it's just a matter of time where people's cultures get better and better because there's more and more good examples out there. We're just trying to be one of those examples because, again, if we all are, business can be a force for good and a change in this world. So with that, I'll turn it over to panel discussion, and I'll get my mask back on here.
Yep. Actually, if you wouldn't mind sitting in the middle, Jason.
Yeah, sure.
And, I just want to say just a couple of words. I want to thank Jason for kind of opening up, this region's eyes to what it means to be a true leader. Candidly, I've worked in industry for over 30 years. I was blessed to get a job with IBM early in my career as an engineer. And I can tell you, at the time, respect for the individual was the IBM motto. But what Lippert Components has done has taken that so much further than anything I've ever seen before in all my work years. And I've got to tell you, to see all the investment that Lippert Components puts in their people, that's unique. And again, I think when he talks about his top line and his bottom line and the fact that it's really resulting in significant benefits, that's the reason people are going to take notice. And I think they already are, obviously, with him being a leader in the RV components industry. So with that, have a seat. And we're going to kind of just ask a few questions. And after we've asked a few, we're going to open up the mic for people to come up and ask their questions. But I'll kick it off, if that's okay, Jason, with a question about the current environment. Obviously, everyone's concerned about COVID-19. And I think all of us would like to better understand exactly what Lippert Components is doing with respect to addressing the issue in the work environment.
With respect to COVID safety?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, so, we have a couple choices. We can sit at home and be afraid, or we can stay at work and just do it safely. So, my perspective is, and I'm in our plants a few times a week. I was in a couple times this week already. I spoke to some of our frontline leaders, and I can tell you that, in the beginning, it was tough because nobody wanted to comply with a lot of the safety. It was just a struggle. But today, I feel that most businesses in Elkhart County, at least the manufacturing community I'm associated with, they take this very seriously, and the manufacturing divisions and areas of the business community here are some of the safest places to be during the day. I'm all over the community, and when I'm in my factories, I feel safer than anywhere else in the community because if you haven't noticed, there's some other people are lax. We have very strict standards, and both from cleaning, social distance, the masks and protection. So I feel good about it, and we watch our caseload every day. So our cases are up a little bit this last few weeks, like the whole county is, but we've got 90 divisions, like I said, and it's one here, one there. We don't have these massive outbreaks at facilities, so we're comfortable.
That's fantastic.
And to get away from the COVID talk, because I'm sure all of us hear it a lot and talk a lot about it, Dave and I are in the same business where we are looking to train people, whether it's at the high school level, at the adult level. And so from your take, what kind of trends do you see emerging in the manufacturing sector, whether it's this year, 5 years down the road? What are things that we can be looking for?
In terms of higher tech manufacturing, or
I think higher tech manufacturing is one area we'd like to know a little bit more about.
Sure. So on the culture side, I see business cultures changing because there's great examples out there. So that's one thing that's changing. And I think that'll be better for all workers because if there's a higher emphasis put on the human being at these manufacturing businesses, it's better for our people. It's better for everybody. But in terms of advanced manufacturing, I'd say every place you go in the country is a little bit different. It depends on the company. Investing in manufacturing, especially advanced manufacturing and robotics and automation and things like that, it's expensive. So, there's mindsets of companies and industries even that say, hey, we're going to go all in and really start an automation type journey or advanced manufacturing type journey. And there's other companies that try to spend as little as possible. So it really depends on the company and even the industry. We've taken an approach where, we've got robotics departments and engineers, and we've got high-tech automation engineers and strategies. So, we just put in a $30 million automation facility to process I-beams, structural I-beams for our chassis division last year. Finished the project this year, but $30 million is a lot to spend on a project like that. We've got a lot of little projects that are $2 to $3 million, but I know some people in this area, some businesses that haven't even taken their first step in automation. So again, I think it's one of those things that it'll catch on. If you don't take some steps eventually, you'll get left behind. And I do think one of the big transformations coming for manufacturing in particular, because that's the business we're in, is that you're going to see more business come back from Asia and offshore because, if you automate correctly and you put the right advanced automation and manufacturing to work, we can build just as cheaply as anybody else in the world can. But it's hard to do. It's not easy. It's not like pressing a button, ordering a piece of equipment, and then, you get there.
So clearly, with the description you just gave of some of the advanced manufacturing processes you put in place, technical training is critical. Can you share a little bit about your vision for how you're trying to help enable your employees grow in the direction they need to in order to be able to support your vision?
Yeah, I think, along lines with the talk on culture we just had, it's really super important for us to dedicate, some of our dollars into training. And a lot of companies, again, if you don't have advanced equipment and things like that, the training's not too awful difficult. But when you have, real expensive equipment, you have, like I said, a $30 million automation project, or it takes time to train, and we're willing to invest the time and resources required to train people. Certainly, if they're coming with the training, that's even better. But that's certainly one of the opportunities is finding enough people that want to go into manufacturing and are trained up in some way, shape, or form to be able to jump in and at least have a grasp of what's going on.
I think part of your response goes into a question that I would have, talking about getting enough people wanting to come into manufacturing. And I think one of the issues there is there's a stigma, and there's sometimes misconceptions about manufacturing. What would you say are some of the most pronounced misconceptions with manufacturing?
Well, I think part of it's just I see how things have changed in the last 30 years to, more and more people are going to college, which is great. But manufacturing does kind of get left in the rearview mirror because manufacturing isn't front and center. It's people get excited about going to big cities and sitting behind a desk. And I've got my college education now, so that's one of the opportunities there. And manufacturing isn't really talked about much. I don't remember hearing much in my college stint about manufacturing. What I learned in manufacturing was, on the job, when I first started. So, I think that the awareness piece is really important. We're certainly out at college campuses trying to recruit. I can tell you that our leadership and training program, we bring in probably 25 college-educated kids a year, but they're not typically in manufacturing because if we tried to do that, it would be really hard to get that many people. Maybe as ridiculous as that sounds, it's hard. But, we have history majors, we have education majors, we have business majors, and we put them all through the same program. They'll either weld, or they'll assemble, or they'll build windows, they'll build awnings, they'll build furniture, they'll build axle suspensions, they'll build something in our company for a year before they get into any kind of leadership or management opportunities. So for us, we just try to home grow because that's the best way. David and I have talked in the past about, hey, if there can be a filter for us to get great people from Ivy Tech or any other institution for that matter, that people that really want to get into manufacturing because that's their background, we'd love that.
At the college level is one thing, and sometimes I think we have people that may have a fixed mindset at that point. How do we push that down further? How do we begin to expose youth, whether it's high school age or even lower than that? What can we do as a community to change that perception of what manufacturing in Elkhart County presently looks like compared to what it may have looked like a decade ago?
Brandon, that's probably the largest opportunity we have because not every kid goes to college, and that's fine. And I would argue that we can provide, a pretty darn good opportunity for people coming out of high school that want to participate in the workforce. Now, I can't help the person that's not ready to work and maybe not ready to commit, but anybody that's willing to get in the workforce and commit, we've got executive vice presidents for the company that don't have a college education, that are doing really, really well and have a lot of responsibility, but it's because they made the choice to want to get in and make a difference and participate at the highest level and compete and win. So, it just depends on the person. But we are getting into high schools right now. One of our strategies for 2021, we've already made the decision, is work with the high schools and try to get, just even with sophomores, juniors, leading up to the senior year, just get our name out there and help make sure they know that there's opportunities here locally if college isn't for them.
So as a follow-up to that, one of the key areas that we're starting to see take hold here is the idea of work-based learning opportunities. And they can be for high school students or college students. I was just wondering, what's your perspective of those? And I know that Ivy Tech does apprenticeships for incumbent workers at Lippert that are basically trying to go to school while they're working still. I'm just wondering, have you considered potentially opening the aperture, to something more than just, an industry day or, a job shadowing program to possibly allow high school students to have a work-based learning opportunity at Lippert?
Absolutely, and we're working on those programs with high schools right now. But we're up for anything. I mean, we need the institution to want to partner. That's been the big opportunity for us, and it seems like that would be a no-brainer. It seems like, the institutions would want to help their students, kind of like you came to us. I mean, if we could get that from, every other institution out there, be it a high school or tech school or college, we could help a lot of kids find a great job, whether it's a leadership opportunity or whether it's just a skilled job that they're passionate about. But it takes the partnering on both sides. We're certainly willing. Like I said earlier, we've got 700 open positions right now. We need skilled people. If we can't find them through institutions like this, then we will train. We'll train them ourselves, and we'll take and invest the time to do that, because the alternative is not having 700 positions filled, and then we're working thousands of hours of overtime and burning people's Saturdays up working to build product for our company. And we don't want to do that.
So you mentioned that even as you started out, you worked on the line. You were a welder. You spent a year basically learning the business. If someone is an accounting background or a business background, do they also do that, even if you're trying to hire them ultimately for an accounting position? I mean, does everyone kind of go through the same, integration to Lippert so that they have an appreciation for what it's like to be a Lippert employee?
No, I'd say, the professional, positions like accounting, typically HR, IT, marketing. You take some of those positions; those will take professionals in that area and bring them into that matching area in our plant. But anybody in operations, which is where 90% of our jobs are, they'll go through a very rigid and challenging operational program. But ultimately, it's worked. We've been doing it since 1995, and we've turned out a lot of great leaders in this company, and every single one of them gone through that program.
That's fantastic.
As you sit here today and we talk, and we have a number of our high school students here and some Ivy Tech students also, what is the one piece of advice you would give people who are getting ready to start a career or very early on in their career? What would you tell them?
So I've had a lot of time to think about that over the years, and it probably changes every year. But if I could tell people what to think about or what to focus on as they're either in between careers or looking to start a career, you might know the field you want to go into, but I tell you to really focus on the company and back to the culture and leadership. Make sure that the company you're looking at is focused on culture. Ask deep questions about, okay, well, how is your culture alive? How do you know you're making progress in culture? How do you train your leaders? How do you develop your leaders? What are the growth path? And what is the growth path for somebody coming into the organization, and what does that look like? Ask for metrics around culture and leadership. If they don't have any, it tells you probably that, or just say, do you have values? Yeah. What are your values? You know, ask for what the value. If they can't tell you the values, they're probably not really focused on lining people up to them. And the only reason I say that is because if you're really intent on finding a job you can be happy with, and let's face it, nobody wants to go to work for 40 or 50 hours a week and be miserable. Nobody wants that. But you can sign up for a job that might sound really good and sign up for a company that's got a culture that's absolutely horrible, and you're going to find yourself miserable for 40 or 50 hours a week, and it's no way to live. So if you're going to go make the investment into a company and find a place to work, maybe spend 10 or 20 or your whole career, years or your whole career, I'd find a place that values people, that is truly lined up with the values, that's living them out. And there's 100 questions you can ask to figure that out. But if you don't ask those questions, you might be surprised once you walk through the doors and experience a week on the job. Because everybody's going to put their best face on. But what they can't fake is, do they measure culture and leadership or not? And those are the questions I'd ask. And ultimately, that boils down to your personal happiness. And that spills over into your family if you've got a family. So to me, that's the most important thing to focus on.
You know, to kind of step away from the culture just for a second, you know, recognizing that you're talking about acquiring 60-plus companies over the last 10 years or so, how difficult is it to integrate the culture of other companies, or how do you convey the culture? And is that part of the assessment in the merger and acquisition process to say, is this a good fit?
Yeah, so, you know, we buy companies that are, you know, $5 million to, you know, we just bought a company last year that was a few $100 million. So, you know, I tell you, for me, we need decent leadership there, and if they don't have decent leadership, or they have an owner or a CEO that's going to be moving on and doing something different, retiring, or just moving on when the business is acquired, you know, we just have to assess leadership first, know that we've got a plan, whether they're going to stay and they're good, or whether we need to put somebody else in there. But I'll tell you that the culture doesn't matter too much for us, and I would tell you that we don't expect a whole lot, because we've been on an 8-year journey, and we've done a lot of things. I mentioned some of them in the talk, but the good news is that we can pivot people pretty quick.
Right.
So, you know, once we get a hold of them and we start spending time with them, we just try to be real respectful about, hey, look, these values are real. We're going to line people up to them. People have to live this stuff out. They can't, you know, just do it part of the time. Because one of the things you get in culture and people and retention is you have a bad actor over here and 5 people that are trying to do the right thing over here. And we say we have values, we put them on the wall, we evaluate people quarterly, but we let that person continue to behave badly, and it ticks those people off over there and they leave. So we lose our best people because we're willing to tolerate somebody that's not willing to act according to the values. So for us, I think all people are good. They want, you know, they want to live a good life and have a good, you know, fun time during their work week, and they want to enjoy the people that they're around. They want it to be fair. So when we press culture into these companies that we acquire, they're quick to fall in line, because most of the time they're like, finally, you know, the company's willing to live it out. And we've got so much history now where people have heard about us, where they kind of expect us to come in and make changes for the better. And we do it respectfully, and ultimately we do it for the betterment of the people that are working there. So
when you talk about having a $3 billion business, you know, obviously you must have a large number of vendors and partners. How do you select them? I mean, is the culture a consideration in there, or are they pretty much, you know, arm's length relationships with your vendors?
I would say, you know, 10 years ago, it was definitely an arm's length relationship. Today, you know, culture matters more. We kind of integrate them in a lot of the things that we do. They ask a lot of questions. A lot of the ones that we're doing business with, they're already good companies. And I believe most companies are good. They don't want to treat their people badly. They just don't know where to start. And that's where we come in and help. So we started a leadership academy in January 2018. We had a soft launch and then kicked it off, the website and a team in 2019. And that whole purpose of that Lippert Leadership Academy is to train companies up on culture and leadership. Show them how to develop their leaders. Show them how to develop and take steps in their culture. So I tell you that that's something that we actually have a part of our company doing today, and we do have some suppliers that have stepped up and said, hey, look, just help us take some steps. And we come in, we have one of our leadership development coaches come in, try to figure out where they're at, identify their next couple of steps, and then get them moving, and show them kind of what we did 8 years ago, the first handful of steps. And before long, they get doing it on their own, and they're taking steps on their own. And that's all we're looking for. It's just help companies get better.
That's terrific.
And just one other thought on that, whether we do it with a customer or supplier, those generally become customers and suppliers for life, because we can compete on price, quality, service. We can compete on those all day long, but we got to compete with everybody else in the world on those three things. You throw in the magic component of helping somebody improve their culture and the way they develop their leaders. I don't think too many people are competing with us in that area. So when it comes time to look at sourcing us out on a component, price is important, quality is important, and service is important, but if we've helped them change their culture for the better, I would say it's hard for them to move away from us or something like that might hurt our company, which is a competitive advantage.
That's fantastic. So, if anyone has questions, we have a mic over here. You can line up behind it. Really love to hear any questions from the audience. Obviously, some of the ones that we have are probably more geared towards our specific interests as academic leaders in the region. But, candidly, in listening to Mr. Lippert here, I have to tell you, I wish I was in your position, to have someone like Jason Lippert and his organization in the region that has such a firm grasp on what it means to be a responsible corporate citizen is rare. And hopefully, by his connections with vendors and customers, it's going to become less rare. Mm-hmm. But, I really do believe that this is a unique opportunity, and from my perspective, it's a great reason why you want to stay in the Elkhart region. To be able to tap into this type of leadership expertise is just a rare opportunity. Anyone have any other questions that they'd like to ask of Mr. Lippert?
What kind of traits are you looking for in your leaders?
We can work with a lot. I think the biggest one would be just, willingness to learn and grow. Work ethic. You gotta want to outwork everybody. I think the willingness to learn and grow. That's the number one trait. People that come in that think they know it all or don't want to change, it's really hard to work with. But if we can coach somebody over their career and pair you with people that have kind of been in that position and know where we're trying to go and can get you there faster, because we can all grow at just a slow pace on our own. But if you have a company that's rallying around you and trying to help you grow, you're going to get a lot farther and a lot faster. So if you're coachable, that's probably the number one trait.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for asking the question.
Do you have high-tech apprenticeships, and what are your thoughts on them?
Yes, we do. So, and I left my business card on all the presentations in the room. So if you are interested in a job at LCI, whether it's an apprenticeship or whether it's coming to work in the leadership and training program, or whether it's just coming to work and plugging in someplace, we have room. So we definitely have apprenticeships, and it's been helpful. I remember 26 years ago, we had a lot more people in that area than we do today, because it seems like there's a little less interest today from the younger folks than what there was, 3 decades ago. But yeah, we're definitely. So if you're interested, let me know.
Yep. Thank you.
Yep.
Good afternoon.
Hi.
I was just curious, what specifically with your business has changed with the coronavirus? What are you doing that's different?
Oh man, we're doing a lot of things different. So, our leaders have to be a lot more self-aware today. People are coming with anxieties to work that they never used to come to work with. So they have to be aware of their surroundings much more than they used to be. And then we've got all the safety protocols and precautions that we've got to take. But COVID has catapulted the RV business because people aren't flying and staying in hotels and taking cruises and things like that. So the RV business, just this year, even though we didn't build anything in the month of April and not much at the end of March, I think that this year was third best year on record, and next year should be a record for the industry. So that's where all the opportunity comes in right now. But
All right. Thank you, sir.
yep, sure, thanks.
Not sure if that.
Do you guys have a CNC where you in your company?
Say that again.
Do you guys have a CNC shop in your company?
Absolutely,
All right, cool.
we do. We have CNC machines all over the country, but we have a lot right here in northern Indiana.
Okay, thank you.
Hello. So as you guys were developing your country, I mean not your country, sorry, your company.
Not yet.
What was the process that you had to do in order to find that made you realize that you had to focus on the values of your company in order to have the most optimal work environment?
So yeah, I'm losing my mic a little bit. So for me, it was a lot of prayer. Like we had been a lot of success year after year, year in, year out, 20% growth for a decade and a half. It was a lot of prayer. It was finding the right mentors, growing myself a little bit and reading more and listening more to some, popular leadership thought. And through all that, I learned a lot about what being a truly human leadership type of company. And we used a lot of Bob Chapman, who's a CEO for Barry Windmiller, and he's written the book, Everybody Matters. And he's done a lot of talks all over the country. But, it was a lot of that coming together at the same time, and just realizing that instead of focusing everything around top line and bottom line, let's focus on the people and build our people up. And, let's not go through the headache of turning 12, 13,000 people a year through the company only to bring 12 or 13,000 new people back in and train them all. It's just, but this is what the county does. This is what this region does. It's the average turnover for manufacturing companies is over 100%. So you just get in that rhythm, and that just is normal. But you break away from it, and you realize how much better it can be if you're focusing on your people. So, thanks.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Hello,
there.
my name is Idris Basari, and I have a question for you. We understand that these are challenging times with COVID-19, and there's also possibilities in automation and advancements in information technology. You have highlighted programs for young ones, high schoolers and the likes. But do you have plans for non-traditional hires, like people in their 40s, displaced people who can afford to just go a long time, they have to feed their family and stuff like that? What are the plans that you have for people in that range?
So, like I said, we have 700 open positions right now, and there's no age requirement or background requirement on any of those 700 positions. Certainly, some of them are skilled. I mean, we need some sewers, we need some welders, but if we can't find welders at any age, we're going to train welders. We're just looking for people that want to come and make a difference, that want to be a part of a great company, and whatever age, background, whatever. We just want people that are passionate to come work for our business.
All right. Thank you.
Yeah.
Jason, you touched on the fact that you had some great mentors, and you referred to books you've referenced. Does Lippert have a formal mentoring process for its employees? Is there an opportunity for somebody to say, hey, I know I need help in this area? How does Lippert address things like that?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the great things about our Lippert, or our leadership coaches and our personal development coaches. So, part of the personal development process is just teaching somebody how to grow, how to be a better version of themselves, how to inspire and coach and lead, whether they've got a team or not. But if they don't have a team, they can lead themselves better. So our personal development coaches and our leadership coaches, and we've almost got 20 of those combined, those resources are available to our teams all over the country. So, if somebody's got a real passion to want to do more than what they're doing today. They just don't know how to get there. And a lot of people might be, I don't want to go ask my direct leader because I don't want them to think I want to take their job or whatever. We've got people in place that will put them in some type of program, and whether they need just some regular mentoring or whether they just need some regular leadership classes, we'll figure out how to get them there. What we want is their hearts on fire and engaged to do better and do more. Because there's some people that are just, it's just not the right time for them. They're not interested in it, or they're not looking for it. They're not passionate about it. And we want to promote leaders that are passionate to lead people, that are passionate to do more tomorrow than what they're doing today. So, and again, I think that those resources are important. We've got almost 20 people in that area. So I ask companies all the time that are passionate about how do we grow and develop our leaders? How do we get our culture better? Well, you got to have champions. You got to have resources dedicated to that. Your people that are running the business, they don't have time to go and do all the leadership development and coaching that needs to be done. So I ask companies all the time, if you're serious about it, where are your resources that you're dedicating? And if you can't dedicate one person to it, then I don't know how serious you are as a company to want to get better, as good as you say you want to get.
That's a fantastic program you have. And, I have to tell you, having worked in industry and for IBM most of my career, I always recognized the fact that the people that were the most passionate, and if you're able to cultivate passion for the business,
Yeah.
they take ownership.
That's right.
And when they take ownership, quality, everything improves. And, frankly, it's a challenge all of you are going to see throughout your work life. You'll see people who own their jobs and other people who are going through the motions.
That's right.
And whether you become a leader or, an executive, whatever you might, strive to become, if there's a lesson that you can share about how to maybe teach people how to take ownership of their jobs, are there a few epiphanies that you've had that have helped you?
Well, I think the difference between the people that are promotable and the people that just kind of stay in their lane is, part of it's passion and energy, for sure. The other part of it's work ethic. It's just hard work, and anybody can do that. And hard work shows. Leaders notice when people around them are working their tails off. But it's an intentional thing. You gotta want to do it. You got to do it every day, and you got to know that promotion and climbing the ladder, if that's part of what you want to do, is grow yourself and have more challenges and be responsible for more people or bigger teams in the future. You got to be intentional about it, and you got to be patient, but you got to have the work ethic, and you got to show up. Like we talked, like your first question was just, we got to show up and be ready to outwork, everybody around you. Otherwise, it's hard to expect that great things are going to come without the passion, motivation, energy, and work ethic.
So one of the challenges I think a lot of people have is they might not really fully understand what a work ethic in practice looks like.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, when I was a young engineer at IBM, I kind of said, look, my priority right now is trying to make a mark in the business. And, I thought taking ownership was investing, maybe 20% more time into things just to make sure that I was getting it done, or I made a point of ensuring that I knew exactly what my manager was doing, because I thought, if I know what he's doing and I can do it, there's no reason I can't be, a manager. So, it was a mindset that somebody taught me very early to say, look, if you want something, you've got to step back and put a plan in place, and it's going to take some investment of your energy and resources. Would you say that's an accurate assessment?
Yeah, I think that, that's a big piece of it. Putting more time in is a big piece of it. But, to me, it's also, develop meaningful relationships with the leaders around you. If you, like I said earlier, if you go on your own, you're going to go a lot slower than if you bring other people along for the ride. So find other leaders in your area, ask them what can be done. When people say, hey, yeah, if you could do this or do that, and you do it, you become dependable, and people start to trust you, and people start to rely on you. And the more that happens, the farther you're likely to go. But if you stay in your lane and just try to outwork everybody, that's good, but it'd be a lot better if you can figure out what else in the organization needs to be done. But you can't do that without really diving in and developing some deeper meaning relationships with people in the organization, and that's what people find hard. You know, it's hard to go in and meet somebody that you haven't met before and try to develop a meaningful relationship with somebody that's higher up in the organization. It's intimidating sometimes, but you know, you got to step out and take the chance. You're not going to know until you try it.
So I'm sure Lippert Component have plans for expansion. So
Yes.
as the leader, where do you see Lippert Component in the next 5, 10, and 30 years?
Right. So that's a great question. I'd say that today, you know, we're in the RV business, we're in the marine business. We build a lot of RV components and boat components. We're in the aftermarket businesses for both of those industries. And we do trains, rail, marine, and caravan in Europe. And then we do all sorts of fleet commercial vehicle components here in the U.S., along with cargo trailers, equestrian trailers. And so we've kind of tried to stay in the recreational, leisure, commercial vehicle type space, public transportation space. And, you know, the adjacencies have always happened just, you know, kind of one step at a time. So, you know, we're trying to do more components in those industries. That's where our growth is coming from. We certainly feel that, you know, last year different from this year, the RV business and marine business are skyrocketing. So, you know, our resources are focused right now on growth in specifically those two areas. And even so in Europe, where we do RV components and boat components in Europe. So that's where the brunt of our resources are focused now, and that'll probably be that way for a couple of years. But there'll be other opportunities that come along, whether they're acquisitions or you know, adjacencies to some of these markets that we're in, that maybe, you know, we can build a window for a vehicle that we're not building windows for today, or something of that sort. And that's kind of how we grow. It's a very step-by-step process. We won't go over to the food industry tomorrow and try to start building equipment for, you know, the food industry. We take real small logical steps to grow our business. Because when we started, we were all housing. We built chassis and roofs for metal roofs in the 90s and before for manufactured housing. And we, you know, RVs were a next likely step because the chassis were the same. And some of the guys that were building housing were building RVs. So we had the same customer. So when we have those easy next steps, we take them. Thanks.
What welding process is the most widely used one in your company?
So MIG.
MIG?
MIG. Yeah, we do a tiny little bit of TIG, and probably 10% of our welding processes are stick, but let's say 80% of it's MIG. And if you don't know one of those trades or another, we can train people.
As can we.
Yeah, right.
I have a question, because the common thing is the pandemic talk. I think a lot of us have learned a lot from the pandemic about how we operate, processes and practices that we've improved during this time. What are some takeaways that you guys have learned through this period that has made you more efficient?
So for us, you know, this was so much different than, I mean, we had said, hey, look, 08 and 09, we'll never go through something like that again. Well, this was worse. This was, business didn't stop in 08 and 09. We had to consolidate. You know, we moved 30 plants down to 15. It was a struggle, but we still had business. There was still demand for our products. You know, in COVID, everything stopped. And most industries didn't know whether their products were going to be needed tomorrow because of some of the things that were happening. But I tell you, the thing, you know, it wasn't process or equipment or capacity. It was communication for us, probably, is what changed the most, because everybody had anxiety. And the first thing we did in late March as a team and say, we are going to communicate with our team members that are not working as long as we have to, weekly. Everybody in the company is going to get a phone call. They're going to know right where we stand. And that kind of carried over past the shutdown. When we all came back in May, our divisions came back to work between May 1st and the end of May. But that better communication stayed in place, and people came back to work feeling like the company really had their back, because they were calling out. We had an emergency fund for people that might have been on the brink of financial issues and couldn't buy groceries or couldn't do this or that. We had an emergency fund, so that communication helped to bridge the gap for some people that had some real significant needs in their family, in their home. So, communication really improved significantly after that, and there was this buy-in of family even more so than what we had going into COVID. So I don't know if that answers your question. But.
It does, and it kind of matches the culture shift that you've talked about. You invested in the human capital of your company and keeping them engaged.
Right.
So when you talk about the acquisitions, do you consciously steer away from potential suppliers and collaborators that might be current suppliers of big automotive companies? Are you in thinking down the road of, hey, we've got a capability that maybe we could compete, if nothing else, get economies of scale because you've got some big customers?
Yes, that's a great question. I think there's things that we definitely cross off the list that we'll never touch. So anything that's commoditized, so anything that doesn't really have any value add to it. I mean, we make a lot of cool stuff, like awnings that move in and out that have lights and alarm systems and doors and entry doors and baggage doors. We make axles and suspension components. We make boat seating and all the furniture for the RVs. We build the chassis structures for the RVs, and electronics and hydraulic leveling and stabilization systems. We do a lot of cool stuff that goes in and out, moves up and down, turns on and off. So we won't get into products that are commoditized, like a wood panel or something that just doesn't have a whole lot of value. So we stay away from those products. And industry-wise, we tend to stay away from the auto business. And part of that's just, I've heard nothing but horror stories there. So I don't want to get into a business where you're a small little supplier and, the big automaker is just hammering you all the time. That doesn't seem like a fun way to live your business life. So we stay away from automotive. But, when you get into some of the niche auto, we build all the school bus windows for all the major school bus builders. That's feels like auto. We do a lot of commercial fleet components. So we do windows for commercial fleet and some other components. We'll go to that extent of auto, but not to the car business. I think the electric car business is going to be a different animal, though. I think that as electric car builders start to spring up, they're going to need some suppliers that aren't that are smaller in nature like us versus some of these suppliers that the big auto guys use. So there might be some opportunities with autonomous and electric cars.
So you said Lippert Component supplies people manufacturing industry in America, in the Americas, and in the UK, right?
We do.
Are there plans to expand to other continents?
Yeah. So
like Africa.
What's that?
Like Africa.
Like Africa. Well, it's funny you mention that because we are in India today. We've got a small manufacturing location in India that just happened last year. We're in several different countries in Europe, UK, Italy, the Netherlands are the big ones. We look to expand in Europe. It's harder there because all the countries are different and the industry is different. So we won't expand quite as fast there as we would in the US. We do have businesses in Canada and Mexico. So there's plans to expand, but we are not a company that's just going to acquire and grow our top line. We've got to do it sensibly. It's got to be a strategic move where we're looking at buying like businesses for like industries and like I said earlier, leadership that can get the job done. And that's even more so important in, whether you're talking Africa, India, or Europe, where you just can't, especially today, you just can't get there. So, good question.
If you don't mind, we're already running over, and I'd like to just give everybody a chance to thank Mr. Lippert for his time and efforts today. He's agreed graciously to stay after to answer some specific questions.
For sure.
But recognizing that we're streaming this, we just wanted to be able to give people an opportunity to break from the session. I also want to make a point of thanking Brandon for being just a terrific host and allowing us to christen his facility with this Prime Talk. I think it's been a fantastic inaugural speech, and I really want to thank you, Jason, personally, because again, your insights into leadership is going to be having an impact on our region for the entire future. So
We hope
thank
so.
you very much.
Thank you. Thanks. Sure.
But if you still want to ask questions.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't know how much time you have. As long as you guys need.
So you said earlier that the industry was different in other countries. In what ways, specifically?
So, the caravan industry in Europe, the RV industry in Europe compared to the U.S., it's, you have to have a certain license to be able to drive or tow a certain weight. So they don't build big RVs over there because then everybody would need special licenses. So weight's a big deal in Europe. Typically the average travel trailer over there is a single axle, 17 foot. We're over here, it's 25 foot's kind of an average travel trailer. We build fifth wheels over here. They don't build any fifth wheels. Their mix is probably 50% motorhomes, 50% trailers. Over here, we're 90% trailers and 10% motorhomes. So there's some differences, and their quality and engineering, is highly, highly automated over there. So they'll spend $40 million to build a factory, where here, it's a few $1,000,000 to put up a factory and some jigs and tables and mezzanines and things like that, and you're in business. So it's a completely different manufacturing mindset as well as end product design. That help?
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, sure. Boats over there too are, most of the boats are big saltwater boats over there that, are 40 foot and over. And over here, you got a lot of the pontoon and runabout market that are under, 26 feet. So,
Speaking of facilities, some of us in this room have had an opportunity to go through your newest facility. What inspired that facility to be developed and built? And is that something that you continue to look to build as far as similar facilities in this region?
were you speaking of the automation facility in Goshen?
Yes.
Yeah, so that was, we've been doing automation projects for the last 6 or 7 years, and we've done some pretty cool automation projects in our suspension division, our glass processing division. But this one was, the biggest project we'd done before this was probably $3-4 million, and this was 30. It required its own facility, so it was definitely special. And I can tell you that we probably won't do a lot of those because there's just not a lot of them to do. But this one we did specifically to move the needle around. It wasn't so much a return on investment from, hey, we can make things faster, all that kind of stuff. It was a quality change that we made because we're just, with all the manual processing we do on structural I-beams, it's hard to get the consistency that we'd get with an automated system with 12 stations doing it. So the answer is yes and no. We're going to continue to do automation. We just probably won't do many projects that size because there's not that many to do. But it's impressive. Hopefully you guys had a good trip, and we got a good group of engineers over there too.
By the way, the tour was 2 Elkhart Area Career Center students.
Oh, that's awesome. Awesome.
So you said Lippert Components started with building homes and stuff. Do you have any insight on the tiny home movement? And are you playing any role in that at this point?
Yeah. So I'll tell you, the tiny home movement, it's gaining steam, but it's still a very small market. No pun intended, but it's they get a lot of FaceTime on TV. You don't see big manufactured homes on TV, but you see all these little homes, and most of them are prefabbed in a factory. And we do business with most of them. We supply windows and we supply their chassis that they'll build the house on top of and roll it wherever they're going to move it. So yeah, we're in that business. We hope it gets bigger. And it's certainly added to the manufactured housing output around the country. So good question. Perfect. Thanks everybody for your time. Appreciate it.